Your marriage can either be your greatest source of emotional support or your biggest mental health risk. Studies from Harvard and the World Health Organization show that people in strong, committed marriages are up to 20% less likely to suffer from mood disorders, and they enjoy greater emotional resilience. But on the flip side, research from the Journal of Health and Social Behavior reveals that those in high conflict marriages are 25 to 30% more likely to struggle with depression, anxiety, and even mental illness and physical illness as well. So, how do you protect your peace while staying committed? Today, we are going to be diving into practical, research-based ways to preserve your mental health without losing yourself in the process of your marriage and your relationship. And my special guest today is Dr. Tiwatayo Lasebikan. Welcome to EB Speaks, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Madam Maybe.
Dr. Lasebikan, when I look at your resume, it is a lot. You have an MBA. You worked with the investment team of We Venture Capital. You also received trainings from prestigious institutions such as Johns Hopkins University, London Business School, the University of Washington. You completed your residency and you moved to Barcelona, Spain to pursue an MBA at IESE Business School, which is ranked third in the world. While in residency, you pursued an online degree, earning an MSc in business psychology from the University of South Wales. And during the years of your training, you served as the pioneer public relations officer of the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria early career section. So you have a striking and impressive resume. And that is why I brought you here. Because here on EB Speaks, what we do is that we bring in experts and everyday people like you and me who share their expertise and experiences, because collective stories and our expertise serve as streetlights and survival kits for those coming behind us. And guys, if you are just watching me for the first time, my name is Ibinabo Enebi, and this podcast is EB Speaks. I have started a series on the love and relationship series. And I've had 4 episodes so far. So if you go to my YouTube channel, Ibinabo Enebi, and click on the love and relationship podcast, you would see episodes like Before You Say I Do, the marriage prep no one tells you about, When Your Heart Says No but Everyone Says Yes, Staying with the Children versus Leaving for the Children and Your Safety, and Breaking Free, Understanding Trauma Bonding in Love. Now, some of the titles are a bit changed, but then I have 4 topics there. Today, my guest would actually talk about how to preserve your mental health in your marriage. And you can be a part of this conversation by leaving your comments in the comment box if you're watching via Zoom, and if you're watching via YouTube as well and Facebook. So welcome once again, and thank you. Dr. Lasebikan, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I think this is the second time. Yes,
Yes.
I was here maybe 2-3 years ago. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you were. And thank you so much for just showing up,
Thank you. Thank you. It's a
I really
pleasure.
appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. So what are you up to now? The last time
Well,
I saw you were in Nigeria.
yes. So I like clinical practice. You get to touch patients' lives, but I was looking for something a bit bigger in the sense that, as a clinician, you have impact in the life of your patients, maybe in the lives of the families.
Yeah.
But I was looking for a job that would give me impact more on a large scale, regional scale, societal scale. And I did an MBA as a result because business does a lot of that. So what I do now is that I help healthcare companies with their business with their business side. For instance, startups that are launching and have no idea of how to go about things. Um, you know, they are more scientifically oriented, and so I bring the business knowledge. and I still see patients, so I get the best of both worlds.
Okay. Do you get to teach businesses how they can help their workers look after the mental health?
Actually, no. I have a job to do that, but I've not done it yet.
I think you should give it a
So I have a
try.
particular company here in Barcelona. I have one here in Barcelona where they actually contacted me recently to do that. So apart from my master's in business psychology, I'm an associate of CIPM, Chartered Institute of Personal Management. So I'm a certified HR practitioner. And I
Okay.
did that. Yes, I did that especially because I wanted to be able to, connect with the human side of things, human side of employees,
Okay.
and help with the mental health. And so, yeah, I do that, but not as much as the business part of it itself.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to delve straight into this conversation. It's about the impact of mental health in our marriages. I was listening to somebody 2 days ago, and he said that one of the most, or rather, the most dangerous person that you can meet in your life is your spouse. Dangerous in the sense that the spouse or your husband or your wife has the capacity to either destroy your life or protect you or help you to advance in life. And I think
Yeah.
that it's very true, because you would come across somebody who was doing very well, and the person gets married to the wrong person, and the person's story has ended. Life has stopped for that person. So I
Yeah.
believe that, that it's important for us in talking about the marriage conversation. And this episode really is for people who are engaged, getting ready to preparing to get married, for people who are already married, and even for pastors or mentors or anyone who talks to people that are getting ready to get married.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, Dr. Lasebikan, because when I was getting married, I was telling my husband this, that we didn't have any mental health thing or anything like that. Your parents just said, okay, you want to marry this guy or you want to marry this girl. Your parents had their criteria, and they wanted to ensure that the person was good, and the person came from a good family.
Yes.
And they just say, okay, go marry. They just give you your blessings and you go marry. But now things have changed.
I mean,
So it's so
the world
funny,
is
isn't it?
changing. The world is
Yeah,
changing, and I think one thing that actually what's the word to use now? That made mental health bigger in people's minds was COVID-19. The
really.
amount of yes, the amount of noise that was around. Noise sounds like a negative word, but let me say the amount of people that were talking about mental health during COVID, made people realize that okay, mental health is not a negative word. Before that, if you say mental health, people think about schizophrenia, depression, and the rest. But during COVID, we saw this normalization of speaking about the mental health actually.
Fantastic. Okay, so and you're right, because I don't know, like my daughter was telling me something, that COVID really affected a lot of people's mental health. And at the time when COVID started, she was supposed to be in her third year, and she was going to school online. She was at the university at the time. And she was telling me about how that experience affected her, but I didn't
Yeah.
really experience any
Oh, okay. Oh,
difficulties or anything like that. But I'm
no,
surprised
it
that a lot
affected
of
a lot
people.
of people. A lot of people. A lot of it. It was this was you can imagine there was lockdown in many, 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 many countries.
Yes,
And that lockdown alone, affected a lot of people's mental health. There's this experiment that was done many years ago. I can't remember the exact place it was done now. And they blindfolded people, locked them up, and said, you know what? Okay, before they even did that, they said, you know what you're going to do? If you can stay locked up in this place for this number of hours, we are going to give you so maybe $10,000 or something like that. And people were not able to stay, because instead, I mean, it was just crazy. It was just crazy, and nobody wanted the money. So that is just mental health. Being restricted in one place can affect your mental health, and that happened a lot during COVID.
yeah. I think that yeah, you're right. You're right. I feel that, again, just putting people in one place, husband and wife, because before COVID, a lot of husbands and wives didn't stay together. They lived together, but they weren't living together. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
go to work,
100%.
You come
6
back.
a.m. You have left home by 6
Yeah.
a.m. You're back by 10, you're tired. Exactly. During the
But
weekend, there's no one there. Sunday is go to church, something. Yeah.
So you were living together without living together. You had the way to escape. But when COVID came, there was no way to escape each other. You now have to be there. And some people's marriages were impacted negatively by that experience. So we're going to talk about marriage now and mental health. So from your experience, how does mental health impact one's life in marriage, both positively or negatively? I think we've lost Dr. Lasebikan. While I am waiting for Dr. Lasebikan, okay, I'm going to ask a question, and I want us to please leave our comments in the comments section. Do you think that marriage can impact somebody's mental health positively or negatively? If you think, please leave your comment in the comment section while we try to get Dr. Lasebikan back. Dr. Lasebikan, are you back?
Ooh, I'm back.
Yeah. So I was asking a question. Can marriage impact one's mental health? And somebody said, yes, it can.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely impact someone's mental health. So, yeah. So in what ways can marriage, and doctor, you hear,
yes,
negatively or positively impact someone's mental health?
All right. The first thing is that to answer your question, 100%, marriage can affect your mental health. I mean, the fact is that we carry mental health wherever we go. Because mental health, when we say mental health, it's not just an abstract concept.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm here.
I think I'm breaking.
Yeah, but I can hear you.
Yes. If you could just give me a second to join on a second device, just so that if one goes off, I can continue with the other one.
Okay. So while we're doing that, I'm throwing the question open, and thank you so much. But again, I still want to know. So yes, somebody says that marriage can impact one's mental health. So I want to know, in what ways can it impact your mental health? Is it that you lose yourself, or is it that you become aware of some feelings that you never knew that you had? And I'm saying, in what way can that happen? And I have another response that says, it depends on the kind of marriage. So we all agree that marriage could have a positive or a negative effect on your mental health. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any other contributions about that?
Well, if we're not truly asking the right questions, we can blindly select the wrong one that is uniquely made by God for us, which can throw you into a mental health crisis. Because, first of all, you are not choosing to the one compatible for you. You are choosing based on some social constructionists of what society idealize for you, maybe what you've watched in a movie, maybe what you're used to by what you've watched by your parents, which could be toxic, and you think that's the norm. And then going by all you've learned rather than understanding yourself and choosing the wrong partner could throw you into a mental health crisis.
Okay. Some people wrote some responses. So I want to read out the responses. So
all right.
A good marriage can positively impact one's mental health. Another one says, it starts from leaving the home you have been used to and accepting a totally new environment, family, and habits. And I mean, in the way that marriage can affect your mental health. Yeah, this is so huge because I didn't even think about it like that. The way it can impact your mental health is it starts from leaving the home you have been used to and accepting a totally new environment, family, and habits. And another one says, while if one finds oneself in a bad marriage, one would need a lot of help to stay healthy mentally. Thank you.
Oof. I mean, everyone is correct. Yeah. Yes, everyone is correct. I'll start by saying life affects your mental health.
Hey, let me write it down. Life affects your mental health. Yeah?
It is impossible to live life with just on a linear mental health. That's not the way, we have been created. And that's not the way life runs. So we have stressors every day that affects our mental health. And we have, other things, that also affect our mental health positively. Things, basic things like, for some people, not having electricity, and you need to iron your clothes in the morning, and then you need to get on for this important meeting. You already frustration is already building up, and this is something that is relatively basic, and so life generally affects our mental health. And now it is now so if general things of life affect our mental health both positively and negatively, it is impossible for something that defines us to actually not affect our mental health. And you say, what do I mean by marriage defining us? Like someone said, when you get married, for many people, maybe you change the houses house you used to live in. You change the bed you used to sleep on. You maybe change your name, to a new name. Definitely, there's no way, that something like that is not going to affect your mental health. The prayer is that you get into a marriage that is going to affect your mental health positively rather than negatively. But thinking that the person you spend your life with is not going to affect your mental health is a fallacy.
I'm writing it down. Thinking that the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with is not going to affect your mental health is a fallacy.
It's a fallacy.
Wow. That's deep. So let's begin to talk about in what ways then can the person that you end up spending your life with affect your mental health? In what way?
When we say mental health, what do we mean? That is definitely going to help us. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual is able to cope with the normal individual stress of life. It's able to interact with the outside environment, in a proper manner. Is able to a person realizes his or her own abilities, and contribute to the community. So, and there's no one that has the perfect state of mental health except those in heaven,
Okay.
So the mental health refers to how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you relate with others. And for instance, if you are in I don't even want to use the word bad marriage now, because a bad marriage definitely, anyone will tell you that a bad marriage can affect your life negatively. We all know that, right? But even a good marriage already has the potential because of the change. It's not just you now, right? There's somebody else. The way they were brought up is different. The way they think is different. Their cognition about matters, their interpretation of matters, everything is different, and that's alone, the way you're able to undo that, can affect your mental health negatively.
Dr. Lasebikan, I'm sorry,
yeah.
I'm not even going to cut you short. I just put my hand on my hip when you're saying this, because you're saying that sometimes, even if you marry a very nice person, good-natured, it can even be a Christian or a devout religious person, that the person's mode of processing things could be so off from what you know, that even if the person is caring and kind, the differences in the lenses through which both of you view life can impact your mental health, even when both of you, even if the relationship is a happy one. Is that what you're saying?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
100%. And let me give an example. You wake up, you tell your husband, I just lost my job, for instance.
Okay.
And this husband, a wonderful guy, the last time he lost his job, the way he handled it was by going early in the morning to the gym, right? And by the time he got back from the gym that day, he started thinking of other places to apply to. And so he wants to love his neighbor as himself, or in this case, love his wife as himself. So when the wife says that I lost my job, instead of, oh, wow, okay, you know what, off to the gym, and she's wondering, what's gym? What are you talking about? So, no, let's go to the gym. You will see it's going to help you. It's going to help because it helped him. Now, this is not a bad person. This is not an evil person, but just the fact that you process things differently, can even lead to frustration. And people need to understand that in marriage. People need to understand one concept that I don't think we talk about a lot is emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence.
And emotional intelligence, both I'm trying to be careful with saying this, right? Because I know that definitely I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and I would say the best marriages are the marriages where Christ is in the center, God is in the center. But you even have wonderful Christian marriages where people lack emotional intelligence, and that affects the marriage a lot. Therefore, in my opinion, the best type of marriage will be one in which Christ is in the center, but each of the two partners involved are highly emotionally intelligent.
Okay. Can I just ask you a question now? And hold that thought, because I'm not trying to stop you.
No
but
problem.
Somebody could be asking, what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent? What does that mean?
Okay. Number one, being emotionally intelligent means you are, number one, able to recognize, understand, manage, and use emotions, both of yourself and of the other person. Just before we came on, I think it was Miss, I'm not sure, Olagoke, who was talking about being self-aware. Emotional intelligence starts from self-awareness. That is, aware of your own emotions. What am I feeling right now? I'm not too happy. I'm getting angry. If you are able to understand your emotions, a quarter of the problem is solved. The second thing is now being able to regulate your emotions, because you can understand it and not regulate. So self-regulation is the next step. So I'm getting very angry. So, okay, you know what? I can control my emotions. And you see some people, very good, effective communicators in marriage, who tell the husband or the wife, anyone, and say, Bisoye, I'm very upset now. I don't want to talk about it. Let's talk about it in about 2 hours. That is an effective communicator. And I'm not just talking about theory now. I've been married, glory to God, for 8 years, to be 8 years in August, And these are things, thank you. Of course, relative to some other people, 20, 25 years, 8 years is a little, 30, wow. 8 years is small. But I mean, some people don't even last 2 years, But these are concepts that have been very, very helpful to me, to my wife, and backed by science, So the next thing was, and I said, apart from being aware of your emotions, being able to regulate it, being able to then use your emotions. What do I mean by use your emotions? This is where empathy and social skills come in. I'm not talking about manipulating people now, no. But I'm saying that, you know that you are angry. So you say, you know what? I'm going to divert this anger, into this. So I'm angry about my loss of job, but I'm going to divert this anger, into looking for job opportunities, And so you see that boss that fired me, I'm telling you, in 2 years' time, he'll want me back at his job. That is using your emotions now. So emotional intelligence, what I just described now, is half of the story. The other half is being able to recognize the emotions of others. I've seen both men and women that lack emotional intelligence. For instance, the man who told his wife to go to the gym did not recognize the wife's emotion at that point. He just was showing love, trying to get solution the best way he knew. But sometimes that is not the way to go. First, what is your wife feeling at the moment? Okay, then how can you manage her emotions, based on how she's feeling at the moment? I mean, I'm not sure that, I'm answering the exact question you asked me initially, but this emotional intelligence question came up because I mentioned emotional intelligence. Yes. So, and I just thought that, let me just quickly, or rather you thought it best that let's just quickly talk about emotional intelligence a bit, and that's it. And I really, really hope that people were able to get a few things, from what I just said. Last thing I will say about emotional intelligence before I go back to your initial question is that it can be learned, you can become more emotionally aware. We use emotional intelligence at the workplace. We use it in marriage. We use it in life. I remember one time when I was struggling at a particular job. And to be fair, I'm not someone who used to struggle. It was a new experience for me. I used
Struggling.
to, yes, at a job. I used to, almost everywhere I've worked, say, this guy, say great things about you. When you want to leave, they don't want you to leave. But this one, I knew I was struggling. And one of my friends was asking me, how are you now? So when is your next promotion now? They have to promote you. And I told him, I said, this is not about promotion now. I need to get better at this job. And he could not understand because he had known me for a while. And not, and when I told him that, what he said was that, wow, that I'm quite emotionally aware,
Yeah.
because some other people will be doing poorly at the job, but they won't recognize it. They're not aware, self-aware. They will blame the boss. They will blame everyone around them, but they won't recognize the facts that they are struggling. And so you can learn emotional intelligence, and it's going to help you, and it's going to help people around you that you interact with. I think this definitely goes back to recognizing when you have poor mental health generally.
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer it, just mention a few points, categorize it and whatever. But before then, I want to say that there are some things that I will do to my wife that will not affect her mental health negatively, but your husband will do to you that will affect your mental health negatively. It's not a one size fits all. Of course, there are some things that are generally bad. Somebody is emotionally abusive to the wife, physically abusive to the wife, sexually abusive to the wife. Someone is, neglecting the wife and so on, financially. Of course, across board, it will affect people negatively, But there are some things that are not necessarily as bad as that, but will still affect one person negatively and not affect the other person negatively. So when I'm talking about, and so, which is why, which goes back to the issue of the emotional intelligence, knowing what affects your partner negatively is a very important key factor.
Okay, Dr. Lasebikan, let me give you an example.
Yes.
About what you're saying. About if somebody, if the partner can do something to you that can affect you negatively, emotionally. So, for example, I grew up being a daddy's girl. I like attention, maybe small thing, yeah? Yeah, you know what it is. And if I had a partner that ignored, and my dad is everything to me, was everything to me. When I was married, I'm married. So my dad was alive. There was a time when I just wanted to go home to spend time with my dad. Okay. Yeah. And my husband would let me go. And then when I go home to my parents, and my dad would be asking me, so you stayed 2 weeks, when are you going back home? And I'm like, I wanted to come home to see you, and my husband allowed me to come. I think that if he had said, you're married now, my home is now your new home, it would have damaged me. I think to me, like somebody said, when you get married, just the change is drastic. So I got married in November. December, my parents and everybody came to Lagos for my wedding. And December now, I won't go Port Harcourt for Christmas. My husband is saying, I said, I want to go home. He said, home. Okay.
This is home.
This is which home? It was like, what are you talking about? And my husband did something. My husband said, if you go and I'll be alone by myself, please stay with me for Christmas. Wow. Do you know if my husband had been harsh to me and said, nope, forget it, this is not your new home now, you can't go anywhere, do you know he would have damaged me? If I did know that, he would have destroyed me. But he understood where I was, and he said, don't worry, you would go home next year, and I went home next year or the year after. And so I got pregnant, and then the next year I got pregnant, I wanted to go home. And my husband was like, you just got pregnant, just wait, you go home for Christmas with the baby. You know the way he was managing because
yes,
I hadn't seen my dad in a long time. It was a problem, but he managed it. He didn't compete with the affection. He managed it. And so that is what we're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's what I mean by some things are not necessarily evil things, but still affect your mental health. And you begin to know that your mental health is affected when you start having there's some emotional signs. I think those ones are obvious. So for
Yeah.
instance, you start becoming sad, you start becoming more upset than you used to be, easy irritability. And why are you cranky every time? This is not who you are. You start feeling this, some sense of hopelessness, being overwhelmed. Those are some of the emotional signs. Many things can do that to you. Even work can do that to you. Children, you have children,
Hey.
and many things can do that to you. Uh, and so, and when I say not every feeling of sadness is depression, we need to say that not every feeling of hopelessness and being overwhelmed, is depression. But this is the beginning of mental distress. And then there are sometimes behavioral signs. For instance, you withdraw. You just withdraw. You start sleeping more or sleeping less. You start eating more or eating less. Those are some things that shows that, okay, definitely this, whatever is going on is already causing me some form of mental distress. Some people start using a lot of substances, or even trying substances. You start trying, maybe you never used to take alcohol, you start drinking alcohol, because you want to just drown the distress. There are some people that they have cognitive signs. You're not able to concentrate at work again. You start forgetting things. Not
Hey.
dementia now,
Hey.
not dementia. But you have
Story
been
of
just
my
because
life.
you're absent-minded. You're absent-minded, you start forgetting things, you start, and sometimes some people have physical signs. Some people just develop acne suddenly. You start having pains all over. So those are some of the things that makes us say that maybe, definitely your mental health is already getting affected.
Okay, so doctor, let me just, this is an interactive program.
Yes.
So I have some questions here, some comments here
Okay.
that I want to quickly throw in
No problem.
just to make the conversation delicious. And somebody says life on itself is draining.
Mm.
Another one says the fact that you have to share your life with someone else would give you the hobby goobies, irrespective of their character, good or bad. Someone says checking the level of the mental health of who you end up with, then try and see if it matches yours. I think it will help us to manage and maintain whatever comes, at least to the extent, because definitely we will get on each other's nerves.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then,
I like that. I
and
like that.
so being able to understand your emotions and those around you, also have the ability to regulate it positively or negative. What's that? Have the ability to regulate it positively. That is emotional intelligence for me. And somebody says, talking about emotional intelligence, I was so frustrated a few years ago that I needed opportunities to leave home. At work, everyone mentioned forms out for a cause I had been postponing for about 6 years. I saw that as an opportunity and went for the cause, which took 4 years. Today, I'm grateful to God that He helped me use the opportunity in a positive way. Perfect. So
Excellent.
here, the audience, our viewers are responding to
Mm.
emotional intelligence, and I think that I didn't think about emotional intelligence that way, the way we handled, and I think that the one that Sade who talked about leaving home really brought the conversation to a different dimension, because when you talk about mental health, really, what you always think about is your feelings of frustrations in marriage and how that affects your mental health. But what we don't talk about is that even if you get married to a good person, if the person lacks emotional intelligence, that can affect your mental health. I think that's crucial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
So you've answered the question, what are some of the early signs that your marriage might be harming your mental health? What are some of the early signs that your marriage might be harming your mental health?
Okay. Some of those things I mentioned, those signs I mentioned, are signs that your mental health is being affected. But to be sure that it is your marriage that is the one causing it, and not something else. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. Sometimes it's not as obvious, And so, for instance, it's obvious when you are having this anxiety whenever you're on your way home from work. So that definitely this has to do with the marriage. You're having this anxiety, this sadness, when your husband, who is a medical doctor, for instance, tells you I'm on call for the next 2 days, and you feel this happiness that, oh, okay, he's not going to sleep at home for the next 2 days. So that, okay, this is my marriage that is causing this. When you're at work and there's a lot of noise, you don't mind. But when your children are making noise and you feel like you're about to go crazy, then you know that, okay, what is going on is from home. So this situation, sometimes those are situational factors, or situations that will make you realize that, okay, this signs, this my withdrawal, this my whatever, I think it's coming from home and not from elsewhere. Because it is not every time that is pretty obvious. We are social beings. We have many areas of our lives. So you have your life with your parents. You have your life with, if maybe church, maybe work, your marriage. And sometimes things are not going well in several places. And it's not just your marriage, and so it may not be the marriage that is causing those symptoms. I just gave instances or how you may know that this sadness, this withdrawal, this irritability, this might change your sleep pattern. How you can know it is tied to the marriage, is when you feel a lot better, outside home than at home.
Okay. So assuming you're home and when you hear your children make noise, it affects you, your mental health, like you begin to get anxious. Does it make you a bad parent?
No. I think that,
because I don't want people to feel that because they're anxious about their children.
No, it doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes you a human being.
Okay.
It does. And that's why we go back again to emotional intelligence. You have to understand, okay, why am I always upset when my children are screaming? And I've spoken to people before. Why, if you don't like noise, when noise, and it happens everywhere. I'm not talking about that now. I'm talking about people are playing football. They're watching match, your neighbors, and they're making noise, and that's not a problem to you as much. But your children making noise is a problem, maybe because it reminds you of their dad. Maybe because, so I'm talking about a particular type of thing now. And that is when you get upset. So you want to think, why am I getting upset? Why am I getting upset at these people, at these children? And if it ties back to the marriage, then okay, this is what is causing the frustration. This is what is causing the mental distress.
Fantastic. And the next question I'm going to ask you also ties with this question. It says that at what point does a relationship start becoming a mental health risk instead of a support structure? You've kind of like answered it now. Yeah?
Yes. I think I have. Let me see if there's anything I should add. Maybe what I should add is that people make mistakes, and so we're not yet saying that one time when your wife was nagging or one time when your husband shouted, has made the wife a bad person or the husband a bad person. No. We are talking about a constant pattern of behavior, that then exposes you to these signs and symptoms that I mentioned earlier. That is when okay, you know what? I need help, right? I need help. And to be fair, we seek help relatively too late. I tell people that the best time to prepare for a good marriage is before the marriage. It's just like the adage that says that the best time to prepare for a war is in time of peace. You can't be going to look for the guns and the ammunitions, when they've already started bombarding you. And it's the same thing with marriage. Before you get married, you as an individual, you have to know your likes, your dislikes. You have to know your boundaries. You have to know your triggers. You have to know your coping strategies. You have to know how to regulate your own emotions, as an individual before you even get married. Now, when you meet this person, hopefully the person too knows all these things.
You're saying hopefully, which means there is no hope.
No, because you can only control yourself. You can't control the other person, right? You can't control whether or not this person knows their own coping strategies already. You can't control that. You can't control whether this person already knows their own boundaries or not. Maybe you can help them to discover, but you are not the Holy Spirit. So you cannot be the one to save a person. And I think that's a problem that many people try. Many people get into. So what I'm saying is that if you've done your own part, right, and the other person, hasn't even done their part, at least because you recognize, because of your own emotional intelligence, you'll be able to know the level at which this person is. The worst thing that you can do to yourself is get married to a person that has poor emotional regulation.
Wow. Okay. So for me, what you're saying is that the emotional regulation is even more important than being spiritual. Is that it? Based from your own experience?
Ooh. So I think both of them are very important, honestly.
Okay.
I think they're very important. And if I'm going to be practical with you, I would say before I got married, I thought that I was going to be the best husband in the world, because as a good child of God that I am, as someone who, I mean, I'm going to love my wife like Christ loved the church, and gave himself for her. I used to say these things, and I also used to, teach people, and and well, of course, I tried. One day, maybe about a year or two into the no, not a year, not 2 years. It was the first year of our marriage. So I was going to work, and I was upset that I was going to work, and my wife had not prepared food for me to take to work. So I was upset. What is going on? I mean, I see my friends, my colleagues bringing their own coolers or whatever, and I was upset. And as I was driving down, I just heard in my heart that, oh, okay, good husband. That is the husband that loves his wife. I was like, okay, what's going on? I said, okay, I thought you said that, you are going to be different, you're going to be this and that. Why are you not the one cooking for her? Let her wake up in the morning and then there's food before she goes to her own work, And I started feeling, okay. Now, what am I saying here now? What I'm saying is that I immediately recognized that I was getting angry at something I told myself that was going to not be a problem, And I corrected myself immediately, I would attribute that to the Holy Spirit. Thank God. But if not because I'm the type of person that quickly recognizes when I'm being ridiculous, I don't think that, I think it will have spiraled, more than that. And so that's what I mean by emotional regulation. Being able to recognize your emotions when God talks to you, it allows you to be able to say, oh, okay. I accept. Because I know that many believers, because of our egos, do not want to accept whenever we are wrong.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, I just want to say to those of us watching via Zoom that Dr. Lasebikan is a seasoned consultant psychiatrist, and the advantage of watching via Zoom is that you have the opportunity to ask him as many questions as you can. If you want to ask him a question, you can raise your hands using the reaction button, and I would get you to ask him questions. So quickly now, I want to ask about how can couples build emotional boundaries that truly supports mental wellness? Good.
There's something that we used to do in what do they call it, in mathematics in secondary school, Venn diagram.
I don't know that one.
Okay, so don't worry. So you draw a circle, and then you draw another circle that's supposed to intercept. I don't know if that's the right word now. Overlap with the other circle. And then what you have in the middle is a shape that joins, the two together.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and marriages should have a similar structure. Number one, you were a circle before, complete on your own, before you entered marriage. The partner too should be a complete circle on their own before they entered. And this circle is what I was talking about. When you know yourself, you know your emotions, you know your ambitions, your likes, your dislikes, your hobbies, this and that, The partner also knows, right? That's the first thing. Knowing your own self. That's the first thing. Knowing your own boundaries, that's number one. Number two is now knowing your partner's likes, dislikes, triggers, what set them off, what makes them upset, what makes them. So knowing it, right? And that is circle A, looking at circle B and saying that, oh, okay, I can see you, you're around, the circle is complete, I can see. Circle B looking at circle A, okay, now there's not the third part where both of them agree to come together. Now, because I already know my likes, my dislikes, some of these things change as you grow older. What you like 20 years ago is not what you like now. Don't get me wrong. It's just they're not, hard facts that before I used to like chicken and I must like chicken for the rest of my life. I used to like going to the movies and I must like it for the rest of my life. No, but at least what you like now is what you are describing. So when the two now come together and overlap as much as possible, they should not overlap 100%. When the Bible says two becomes one, I think the image that comes to our mind is that the two circles overlap on each other
and become one circle.
And become one circle, And I don't think that is what was being described. I think two distinct circles come together to form one shape. Now, you still have your own parts. Your partner still has their own parts. But God bless you if you overlap as much as possible. But what is that your own part? Your own part there is that I want to be a professor of aeronautics engineering. My wife wants to be a professor of finance. Those are two different dreams, but I recognize her dreams. I recognize my own dreams. Okay, how can we make this to work? What happens in many marriages is that when you overlap completely, one person gives up their old dreams for the other one. And that is bad for the mental health. Many of our parents' generation, this typically affects women more than men. And many people in our parents' generation just learn to cope with it because that's how it was, right? That's how it is. So you just free your dreams. In fact, you don't even have big dreams because you know that you're going to get married and your dreams will be secondary to your husband's dreams. So what's the purpose of really having big dreams in the first instance, right? So you just have dreams that can easily, so when the two circles overlap, you don't even feel that, But that has changed a lot over the last 30 years, maybe 50 years. I was telling somebody recently at a church meeting that if you don't want your wife to work, it's different if your wife doesn't want to work. That's okay. She has a choice. Both of you agree. But if you are going to say you don't want your wife to work because the woman should not work, then please don't send your female daughters to secondary school and university because there's no point. You also don't want them to work when they get married. Sorry, that's not the purpose of our discussion, but I just, I just thought to mention. Yes, just to add that. Now, so when these two circles overlap as much as possible, but they're still distinct places. She has her own friends. You have your own friends. Sometimes we have similar friends. My wife and I have known each other for about 17 years now. We have a lot of friends in common, but she still have a few friends that I don't know that maybe she introduces me to them. I introduce her to some of my friends, she has places that she goes. She wants to go vacationing. I don't like to vacation as much. I just like to, stay, Sometimes we go together. That's the overlapping part. Sometimes she actually goes on solo travels. That is the part that doesn't overlap. That's the part that she's enjoying herself, And so definitely, if you do not recognize your own likes, dislikes, hobbies, boundaries, and that of your partner this way, you are not going to have the best of marriages. I don't know if I've been able to answer that question.
I think you have, and this is what I said it is, that sometimes as women that we get lost in the translations of the roles that we play and the duties that you perform. So a time comes in a woman's life where when she doesn't have, in those days, right, like you said, your husband's dream is your dream. You don't have any dream, but you find out that even when you have the children, you're happily married, you feel disconnected. You feel a sense of unfulfilled dreams and purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm asking the question that if you are happily married, you have children, your husband provides everything for you, and yet you feel lost in the translations of the roles that you play and the duties that you perform, then there is a problem. But then sometimes you'd see that the way that we react a child will do something, the way that you react, you're asking yourself, is it what this child did, or is it something else that is behind what the child did? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a problem.
Sorry for that. Just wanted to say, when I was talking about sometimes your children are crying or shouting, making noise, and you're upset. That's what I was alluding to. That sometimes it's not the child making noise that is, upsetting you. It's something deeper.
Yeah, because you're lost.
Yeah.
The marriage was good or is good, but you lost yourself. You lost your dreams. You couldn't fulfill your dreams. So there's a question I want to ask you is, you've talked about boundaries. Yeah. Did you talk about boundaries?
I think that was what I wanted to answer when I started talking about the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
So specifically about creating boundaries. Number one, okay, I think what was going on was, I said I talk a lot. I was going to talk I was going to talk about boundaries, and then I remember that it's good sometimes for the boundaries to overlap, and that's when I went all around the Venn diagram of a thing. Yes. So first, this is your boundaries is all about what you can take and what you can't take. This is because and without knowing yourself, you can't know your boundaries. And you will see that some people would say, I don't mind if my if my husband
plays outside, goes to play.
Exactly, and that is how they define their own boundaries, well, good for them. But the point here is that you want to know your boundaries to know how to be able to even set them. Some people will tell you that I want to sleep on the same bed with my wife every day. So that kind of person, for instance, should not marry a nurse. I mean, our job means that sometimes on night duty, right? And sometimes, so that's what I mean by know your boundaries, know your likes and dislikes. That's what connects to what your boundaries are, and then both of you will discuss this. Boundaries are things that gets moved. So I personally think that people should have the conversation about boundaries, every now and then, not every market day, but maybe every 2 years, say, okay, actually, remember that I used to say that I like us, doing this and that. But honestly, no, I don't like it as much as I used to, and have the discussion,
Yeah, perfect. So what advice would you give to couples who are realizing that one or both of them are emotionally burnt out?
Okay. I'm happy that you have realized this. If whichever couple, either the couple or one of them, and that's the first thing, realizing it's great. The next thing, should be to speak to a trusted person. When I say trusted person, sometimes, the trusted person can be straight up a professional, a therapist, not necessarily a psychiatrist yet. If there's no mental disorder, it's just some form of burnout, some form of, mental distress, and and to be fair, sometimes it's difficult to recognize the boundaries of mental distress and mental disorder. So maybe you can speak with a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist says, it's all right, I'll refer you to a psychologist, and you can talk it out. You can do talk therapy. But sometimes speaking to a pastor can help. Sometimes it doesn't help. I would wish that our pastors, as much as having a lot of the Spirit of God, that they also are coached in the right way and manner to go about some of these things.
Exactly, because that's what Latifat said, that they should be trauma informed.
Yeah,
some of them are not trauma informed. No,
exactly. And so that's why I said speaking to a trusted person. There are some pastors that will tell you, okay, you know what, you need to see a counselor. Sometimes this trusted person is a friend. Sometimes it is not, because there are also friends that when you tell, the next place is CNN. That's where you see your news. Yeah. So when we say trusted persons, the only person who the professionals have a fundamental responsibility, to keep what you say with them. That's why I'm being guarded, about saying pastors, friends. But the truth of the matter is that there are far many more pastors and friends and family members than they are professionals. And so sometimes you can actually pray and be directed to who to go to. Then there are also many self-help tips online. That also is something that we have to be careful about.
Okay. I was going to say, is it right? Because you see, a lot of people come online and
Yeah.
are experts in quote.
Yes.
Do you know, I was reading something the other day, and they were talking about the dangers of mindful meditation.
Mm,
Some experts was talking about the dangers of meditation, because some people talk about meditation as in meditation, but then there are spiritual implications of meditation. Some people meditate and they are channeling spirit that they don't know
mm,
about. So
mm,
some people could be meditating and chanting. In the
mm,
process, they are opening themselves to be attacked
mm,
by spirits,
mm. Yeah.
So that's my fear about meditation.
Yeah.
By and large,
Mm,
I feel that we live the way that we are in society is that if you have somebody that you trust, that is fair
mm.
and that you can talk to, it's
Yeah.
fine. So
Yeah.
so guys, I mean, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free and leave the questions and comments in the comment
So
box, and
before
Dr. Lasebikan would answer it for you. Dr. Lasebikan, I have 3 more questions I want to ask you quickly.
okay. All right, then go
Okay.
ahead.
And by the way, before I ask you the question, guys, if you're watching me for the first time, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ibinabo Enebi. Please subscribe to my channel and help my channel grow. And then you can follow me on my social media handles, Ibinabo Enebi, LinkedIn, Ibinabo Enebi, TikTok, Ibinabo Enebi, Instagram, and Ibinabo Enebi, Facebook. So quickly, what mental health tools or habits do you recommend for married people to practice regularly?
Okay. Number one, married people should take care of their own personal mental health, even if, as they would do, first of all, even if they were not married.
Okay.
And so, good sleep, right?
Yeah.
Good exercise.
Yeah.
Well balanced diet, right? Maintaining a diary, maintaining a good one can help you if you are given to that, right? These are tips that I would give to anyone, recognizing your triggers, quickly, staying away from your triggers. Now when it comes to being married now, one of the major things is learning to communicate properly. That's one.
Okay.
2 is learning to, and which is close to communication, learning to receive criticism. Married people should learn how to give criticism and how to receive criticism, because it definitely helps your mental health.
I feel that it's not about criticism. I think it's about giving feedback.
Feedback, yes.
Yes,
Criticism is not a
I feel that
negative
I
thing.
feel that some people overcorrect,
Mm,
all the time. There's never
mm,
anything that you do right. And I feel
mm,
that the reason why, and I don't want to say that, the reason why I'm saying is feedback is because if you give me feedback,
mm,
you're opening me to seeing something that I've done incorrectly.
mhm.
And your feedback is giving me time to reflect and then to change. So it's constructive, I would say, constructive feedback.
Yeah. When I use the word criticism, I was referring to what you just talked about as
Constructive feedback.
when I said learning how to give criticism, I meant learning how to give constructive feedback. Because if you know how to give it properly, the person is more likely to accept it. If you know when to give and know when not to give, if you know how much of it to give, so that's what I mean by we need to learn it, right? And it's because there are some things that you do not have to mention. There are some things that you do not have to mention. There are some things that you so anyway, I don't want to belabor this, right?
Okay,
So
let me read out some of the comments.
okay.
So somebody
I was going
says
to say
here.
two more things, but
Okay, do that.
Okay. Now for Christians, it's funny that we quote the scripture a lot that talks about wives submit to your husbands, and husbands love the church. Love your wife as Christ loved the church. This is in Ephesians 5. And after this, Apostle Paul then talked about how to behave as a worker, how to behave as a master, how to behave as parents, how to behave as children, and he said this. That was in Ephesians 5. In Colossians 3, he did the same thing. talking about how to behave, as Christians generally. Now, the similarity between those two passages, is Ephesians 5, verse 18, and Colossians 3, verse 16. Those are the two verses that precede those husbands do this, wives do this, workers do this, that he gave. And those two passages are key. Ephesians 5:18 says that, I'm confusing with 3:16. Hold on, I'll say it now. Okay, let me just say this one first then. Colossians 3:16 says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, speaking to yourselves in psalms, hymns, and spiritual song. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Then Ephesians 5:18 says, do not be,
should I bring this?
do not
Should
be
I bring my
drunk.
Bible?
I remember, I found it in my head now. Do not be drunk with wine, where is in excess, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves in psalms, hymns, and spiritual song, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. In my own estimation, letting the word of Christ dwell in you richly is going and being filled with the Spirit. Both of them would help you be a good wife, husband, worker, servant, parent, child, And I think that as believers, I tell people as believers that the better you are as a human being, in reading God's word copiously, and the better you are as a human being in allowing the Spirit of God to guide you, the better you will be as a husband or as a wife.
Dr. Lasebikan, let's see. And I believe what you're saying, because I believe that the word of God changes people and the Spirit of God changes. But there are some people that are prayerful, that read the Bible every day, and they are very bad. Some
100%.
women are married to Christians, to pastors. I had two of my guests that came before. My second guest, my second and third guest, were married to Christians. One married to a pastor, and the marriage broke up.
If you notice, those scriptures did not say, read your Bible richly. It said, let the word of God dwell in you richly. So, that is one. The second one did not say, pray a lot. It says that be filled with the Spirit, right? So what I believe is that many of us are cognitive Christians, where Christianity is in the head, but it doesn't, the word of God is not dwelling in our hearts, it's dwelling in our mouth, the Spirit of God is not, you are not filled with the Spirit of God, and so we have people who are very religious, but God has not been able to transform their lives as a result of, they're not cooperating with God. So that's, I agree with you. I mean, I have many examples too of the kind of people that you just described.
Let me just quickly read the comments here.
Okay.
Somebody says here, there's a lot of comments here. It says here, as you grow in marriage, you should communicate to each other the changes you feel in your emotions, so that our partner doesn't think we are becoming someone else. I think partners should pay attention to these changes and the boundaries that come with it in each other's lives. This, I think, helps. Okay. And when you are emotionally burnt out, you need to scream to release the pressure. You don't go to a pastor or someone that will bore you with more talks, except you are very free with the pastor and that he would allow you scream. Take a break, go on a vacation with a friend, take a break, go on a vacation with that friend that would allow you scream 100 times with no hard feelings. Meet someone that would help you redirect your emotions to something else. It sounds like these people are religious and deny the power of God. There is no way one will dwell with God and remain the same. Absolutely. And somebody says here, can I read all the comments here? So what do you do when you have a partner that feels they know it all when it comes to marriage and don't need anyone to tell them what to do to take the marriage to a better level? That's a question for you.
That's a very difficult place to be. Very difficult place to be. I like to say that one of the things that one looks out to before you get married, is, and that's what we talk about, emotional intelligence, somebody who is aware of themselves and aware of their limitations, and know that those type of people are ready to receive correction, ready to receive. When you're married and you're married to somebody who doesn't who doesn't want to accept that they're not doing well enough is a difficult place to be, I can assure you. Typically, if this person is in a church, the person, and then you look, if the person is in a church, and this person goes to church, because you can be going to church and not be in a church. So let's say this person is in a church. Then you say, okay, hopefully you people you as a couple are in a very good church. You can talk to the pastor, to talk to him. That's one. Sometimes the person that can talk to him, this might sound strange, might be a mentor that's not even in church, right? This person respects so much his boss. He feels like the boss has, broken barriers, has done this and that, and he say, okay, sometimes that may be difficult. That boss must be somebody who, who is not just a good person, but also, has your best interest at heart. Because, some of these things are very difficult place to be, honestly. But one that I think would not fail, is you talking to your father that happens to be your father-in-law at the same time, and that is God. If you are married to a Christian, your father is your father-in-law. And so it's easy to talk to this person and say, help me talk to your child. I don't like what your child is doing, But of course, if the person is not a Christian and doesn't listen to God, that's again, it's different. I don't know if you've heard of testimonies where you people are just watching one pastor on YouTube, that is not even your pastor, and the pastor is saying something, and the husband just apologizes, and so that is the power of prayer. I'll give one example and then move on. So the school I did my MBA, they invited Mrs. Ibukunwoshika for the graduation talk, this last graduation. I mean, I didn't have any business going for the graduation, but because she was the one, I wanted to listen to her.
It was outside of Nigeria?
Yes, outside of Nigeria.
Okay.
Yes, ESA Business School. And so I wanted to listen to her, and she, wonderful talk, great talk. Now, I was talking to a person who works at the school, and this was after the program. I said, we had a speaker, the Nigerian did fantastically well, this and that. I said, oh, thank you. I know her. She's a good talker. She's this and that. She's even a pastor in my church, this and that, in my church in Nigeria. And so she said, and this lady said, there was a girl, a graduating girl in the audience, who the mom had been disturbing her. It's time for you to get married. At least now you're graduating. You should get married. Look for somebody. During Ms. Awoshika's talk, she talked about how some parents rush their children into marriage. Now, before you get married, you need to be careful to choose this, to choose that. And after the lecture, after the graduation, the woman went to look for her daughter and said, oh, I'm very sorry. I've been rushing you. Please take your time. You don't have to get married now. You don't have to do this and that. Now, Bukawoshika was just talking, saying her own things, but she was solving people's family problems.
Fantastic. I have another question I want to ask you, and I'm not, because it's so interesting. How do cultural and religious expectations about marriage affect mental health, for better or for worse? As a woman, you come back from work, you're tired, you can't cook, you are tired. Or maybe you've been all day looking after the children and everything, and you're tired. And sometimes you just say, I beg, Jerry, it's not tiredness, it's laziness. You're pregnant for the first time. Pregnancy is showing you shege. I'll be showing you wala. And then the husband now says, are you the first person to get pregnant? There's a woman, all the women in the office, they're all pregnant. All of them don't have. So I feel that sometimes the cultural and the religious expectation about marriage, where you say woman, and I'm not kicking against women submit to your husband, because I feel that to be submissive is good, but there's also a flip side to it. And they said that husbands, love your wives and give your life for her, just as Christ loved the church. Jesus gave himself to the church and made her beautiful, without wrinkles or blemish, and he gave himself for her. So if I have to submit to you, then make sure that you also make me beautiful and without blemish, and you can also love me as you love yourself. So there's always an overemphasis of the woman submitting, whereas the role that the man that Jesus even died for the church is not overtly emphasized.
So I tell people that people read that scripture the wrong way. What they typically read is, husbands, make your wife submit to you. That's what they read. But that's not what that scripture was saying. That scripture was talking only to women. Therefore, women are the ones, as a husband, it's not your business whether your wife submits to you or not. If she's not submitting to you, report her to your father, who is your father-in-law, right? The part that you should concentrate on is the very difficult part, just a few verses after. If you spend time on that, you won't have time to be concentrating on the 3 verses that refer to women, ignoring the 6 verses that refer to men. What I tell women is your work, right, is to do your own part. If before you get married, don't marry somebody that's not doing that part, that whole 6 parts. You can't see it in the person, that the person, first of all, loves God, loves Jesus, and that the person, is actually willing to give himself for you. I gave an example earlier on, talking about the example of I was going to work without food in my cooler and all that. What I didn't mention was that the exact verse, that came to my heart was the part that said that I am the one that should die for my wife. And that was actually what made me decide that, okay, so this is how to die for your wife. She came back from work very late. She was so tired. She's still sleeping when you had to watch home for work. So you want her to wake up again. So this is for me, right? And reading the Bible as it is, and not reading what I want to read into the Bible, and it's not just in Nigeria. I mean, I've been living in Spain now for the past 3 years, and I can tell you that, it's a bit better, but it's not too different, to be fair. It's not too different. Culture should not dictate what is going on in your own home. Culture affects things generally. I mean, you are Yoruba, you are Igbo, affect, is normal, right? But it is your duty, to make sure that some people who died 250 years ago are not dictating what is going on in your house today. I don't know if you're understanding my point.
Yeah.
And so that is why, if, for instance, and I mean, it's something that I tell people who come to me for counseling and all that. If, for instance, now your wife wants to be a professor of, I don't know, wants to go to space, be a professor of robotics, and maybe you actually don't mind, you also want her to be that, but you're thinking about what will people say? Who's going to take care of this? Who's going to do this? What would it, if that is why, if culture is the one that's affecting your happiness and your wife's happiness, then you are a very ridiculous human being, and so culture definitely plays a role. It definitely plays a role. Religion also plays a role. It's our duty, to make sure that those things are not affecting our own houses, our own homes negatively.
In a
If
negative
anything,
way. Fantastic.
if anything, they must affect us in positive ways.
Fantastic. There's a comment here. So I so agree with Dr. Lash. Prayer works wonders. You don't have to bicker and nag. Just give constructive feedback after praying. God answers honestly. He gives wisdom, the wisdom required to tackle issues.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay. So one last question before I leave you. Do you believe that love is enough, or do couples need something more to stay mentally strong together?
Love is not enough. Oh. No. Love, it's a joke to think that love is enough. Maybe I should even ask what you mean by love, right? Because if what you mean by love is this emotional
Passion.
feeling, passion, I mean that's even the worst. If by love you are referring to agape, that can even strengthen you. But if you're talking about the the romantic butterflies in your tummy kind of love, that's a joke. Love love is the icing on the cake that makes the cake sweet, or that makes the cake look beautiful and appealing and all that, but you still have the real cake, which is a bunch of decisions, making decisions, the right decisions every day,
So
that
when we
is
talk about love, we're not talking about we're talking about consideration, being considerate, being kind. We're not talking about passion, yeah?
Yeah, so that my point now is that you talk about being considerate. You mentioned something. You said 2 things: being considerate,
Being
being kind.
kind.
Yes. So these are decisions.
Hmm.
They are not feelings. They are actions that you take every day. That affect your life. Let me tell you, you're supposed to love your wife, you're supposed to love your husband, you're supposed to have this emotional feeling, But if you have zero of that, but you have kindness, compassion, empathy, you have this, desire, you have the desire for peace, desire to make the person happy, your marriage is going to be more fantastic than that person who has a lot of butterflies in the belly but keeps making the wrong decisions.
The butterflies will fly away.
No, definitely.
Okay. So again, if you have any questions, I think I'll just give us maybe like 10 extra minutes if that's not too much. If you have any questions that you want to ask Dr. Lasebikan directly, please kindly raise up your hand so you can ask those questions. Otherwise, we'll just call it the day. And next, in another 2 weeks, I'm going to have another doctor come to talk about the importance of considering a partner's or somebody who you intend to marry's health status before you get married. So today we've talked about the importance of mental health, but in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have Dr. Abiye Hector Goma come to talk about marrying in your medical bracket. So it's not just about, so for example, if you have sickle cell, you know that you shouldn't marry somebody that has sickle cell, that kind of way. But then we're going to explore the conversation even more deeply. We're going to look at the medical side of choosing a spouse. So join me then.
So, can I say something?
Yeah.
What you just said now is inspiring me to say that you also need to marry a person in your mental health bracket.
So, okay. So how do we marry somebody in a mental health bracket? Oh, I thought let's talk about this one now. Okay. How do we marry somebody in a mental health bracket?
Yes, I mean, and I use mental health in quotes because I'm just trying to make it as similar to what you said as possible. But you see, the way you check for I'm AS, are you AS, right? The way we do genetic counseling for people, even with if you have a history of mental illness, before you get married, we do genetic counseling for you and your spouse. That is the same way you should actually check the person's mental health in form of cognition, likes, dislikes, hobbies, most especially their level of emotional intelligence. Because you can marry somebody who is very beautiful, and they will tell you that, okay, it's not just beauty that keeps, a marriage, but good conduct. I'm telling you, something else that keeps a marriage, is the level of emotional intelligence both partners employ. And so if you are not a wise person, even if you are innocently foolish, your marriage is going to be bad.
Wow.
Proverbs talks a lot about Proverbs 25, I think, talks about foolish people, all around. I think 24 also the same thing. You can be innocently foolish.
Naively disruptive, you mean?
Yes, some people are even simple, simple-minded. Foolishness now is, first of all, not recognizing your own emotions, not recognizing your own insufficiency. And so when my wife tells me, for instance, that Tiwatayo, you should not have said that though. Many times I say, let me not lie to you, I know I should not have said that. That is because I've recognized, even while I was saying it, that what I said is not good. And it takes a level of wisdom to be able to achieve that. So as a woman, are you going to get married to a wise man? As a man, are you going to get married to a wise woman? Because you need wisdom to be able to maintain a fantastic home.
That wisdom comes with emotional intelligence. Yeah. And
Definitely.
somebody says here, I need to read this. Somebody says, wow, innocently foolish, marriage will be bad. And then of course it says, when you said emotional intelligence or wisdom is important, you said you can say that again and again. So Dr. Lasebikan, I don't want to drag this matter for too long. I would say that we've come to the end of today's episode of EB Speaks. You did fantastically well.
Thank you.
Guys, if you're here today and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. I have other interesting episodes on the marriage, on the love and relationship series podcast on my YouTube channel. And if you're there, please leave your comments. And guys, if you love somebody and you know somebody who wants to get married, send them the Love and Relationship podcast if you really, really love them, because I have a lot of things that I'm going to talk about. Aside from medical health, we're going to talk about finances. Apart from finances, we're going to talk about how to maintain spark in your marriage and intimacy in your marriage without, how to, after conflict or something like that, conflict management and stuff like that. So it's a lot. And I'm going to get somebody who has been married for a long time, people who've had successful marriages come to share the marriage tips. And I and my husband are also going to talk about how a marriage can survive long distance. And we had long distance for over 15 years. And we're also going to talk about that as well. So please do me a favor, help my channel grow and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Dr. Lasebikan, a lot of people stayed though. They didn't go. Guys, I just want to thank everyone who logged in. I normally have EB Speaks twice a month. If you follow me on my social media handles, Ibinabo Enebi, you'll get to find out when I'm on again. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Somebody said, loved every part of this conversation. Thank you so much, Amotala. Amotala, she said it was spiritually sound and balanced. Thank you. And Dr. Lasebikan, I will call you. Thank you. A truly beautiful session. Thank you so much. And guys, like I don't want to overflog this issue. Give me ginger to continue by subscribing to my YouTube channel and follow me on my social media handles and let this channel grow. And someone says, very, very doing EB. It's a very good EB. God bless you. It's enlightening and educative. Thank you very much. Thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah, bye everybody.
Bye.
I'll call you.